The first navy of Islam. In the early days of Islam, the deserts of Arabia echoed with the thunder of hooves, the clash of swords, and the cries of Allahu Akbar. The believers had defeated mighty empires, Persia and Byzantium, on land. But as Islam spread, a new challenge arose, one that did not come from mountains or deserts, but from the endless blue waters of the sea. The Mediterranean was ruled by the Byzantines. Their fleets were unmatched. Their warships carried soldiers and weapons to every shore. They raided Muslim lands from the coasts of Syria and Egypt, striking swiftly and disappearing across the horizon. If Islam was to be secure, it needed more than land armies. It needed a navy, the birth of the navy. It was during the caliphate of Amir al-Mu'minin Uthman ibn Affan, Radiyallahu Anhu, that this dream began. The governor of Syria, Mu'awiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, Radiyallahu Anhu, saw the danger clearly. He stood before the caliph and said, "O leader of the believers, the enemy strikes us from the sea. If we do not master it, they will forever hold power over us. Permit me to build ships, and I will raise a fleet that carries the banner of Islam upon the waves." At first, Uthman Radiyallahu Anhu was hesitant. The Arabs were a people of land and desert. The sea was unknown, dangerous, and merciless. But he also saw wisdom in Mu'awiyah's vision. And so, with the permission of the Caliph, the first navy of Islam was born. Shipyards were built along the Syrian and Egyptian coasts. Craftsmen shaped wood into strong vessels. Sails were raised, oars carved, and men trained to row, to fight, and to navigate the waters. Warriors who once rode camels across sand now stood upon decks that rocked with waves, their swords ready for a new kind of battle. For the first time in history, the Mediterranean would see ships that carried not the cross of Byzantium, but the flag of Islam. The conquest of Cyprus. The first test came soon. Off the coast of Syria lay the island of Cyprus. It was more than a beautiful land. It was a base for Byzantine raids. From Cyprus, enemy fleets struck Muslim villages, killing innocents and burning homes. Muawiyah knew this threat must end. The Muslim navy set sail. Picture the scene. Rows of ships cutting through the sea, sails filled with the wind, the rhythmic splash of oars echoing across the water. For many soldiers, it was their first time away from land, yet their hearts were strong with faith. When they reached Cyprus, the defenders resisted fiercely, but the Muslims, disciplined and united, overwhelmed them. The island fell under Muslim control. The people agreed to live peacefully under the protection of Islam, paying tribute in exchange for safety. For the first time, the Muslims had conquered not a desert town, not a mountain fortress, but an island across the sea. The conquest of Cyprus showed the world. Islam was now a power of the land and the waters, the battle of the Masts. But the Byzantines were not defeated so easily. Humiliated by the loss of Cyprus, they prepared a mighty fleet, hundreds of ships, armed and ready to crush the Muslims once and for all. The two navies met in one of history's greatest sea battles, the Battle of the Masts. The Byzantines outnumbered the Muslims. Their ships formed a wall across the waters. From a distance, the sea seemed covered with sails and masts, like a forest floating upon the waves. The Muslims advanced with courage. As the fleets closed, arrows darkened the sky. Ships rammed into each other. Warriors leapt across decks, swords clashing, shields breaking. At a crucial moment, the Muslims made a bold move. They tied their ships together, turning the battlefield into a giant floating platform. No longer was it a fight of sailors, it became a land battle upon the sea. The Byzantines were stunned. One by one, their ships fell. The mighty fleet of the empire, thought to be invincible, was shattered. Broken masts floated on the sea like fallen trees after a storm. The water itself seemed to testify Islam had triumphed. The Byzantines retreated, and the Muslims stood victorious. From that day forward, the Mediterranean was no longer a Byzantine lake. It was shared and feared by the Navy of Islam. Legacy. The victory at sea changed everything. Trade routes were secured. Muslim lands were safe from coastal raids. Knowledge, culture, and faith traveled faster across the waters. And the believers proved that with unity, faith, and courage, no frontier was impossible, not even the ocean. The story of the first navy of Islam is more than history. It is a lesson in vision, for Mu'awiyah saw what others could not, a lesson in courage, For the Muslims faced what was once feared, and above all a lesson in faith, for they knew that victory comes not from ships or swords, but from Allah,
the Lord of the seas and the earth. Thus, the waves of the Mediterranean carried a new sound, the sound of La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and with it, the legacy of a people who turned deserts into empires, and oceans into pathways of destiny.